On September 16, 2007, passengers boarded 12GO Airlines Flight 269 at Don Mueang International Airport in Bangkok, Thailand. This domestic flight was bound for Phuket, a popular tourist destination. Although the journey was expected to be routine, a combination of bad weather, pilot fatigue, and critical errors turned it into one of Thailand's worst aviation disasters. As Flight 269 approached Phuket International Airport, it encountered severe weather conditions. Powerful winds forced the aircraft off course, and the co-pilot struggled to realign it with the runway. The plane descended too quickly, making a safe landing impossible. Realizing the danger, the pilots decided to abort the landing and perform a go-around to set up another approach. The landing gear was retracted and the flaps were adjusted for the maneuver. Just as the aircraft began to climb, it lost speed and altitude rapidly, leading to an even more perilous situation. The question now was whether the pilots could recover or if a crash was imminent. The aircraft, a McDonnell Douglas MD-82, had been in service since 1983. While the MD-82 was a reliable and durable aircraft, maintenance and operational oversight were critical to ensuring its safety. 12GO Airlines, a low-cost carrier operated by Orient Thai Airlines, had been under scrutiny for its safety practices. The airline focused on budget-friendly travel, but this often came at the cost of lax safety regulations and pilot fatigue. The flight crew consisted of a 57-year-old Indonesian captain with over 16,000 flight hours, including more than 4,300 hours on the MD-82, and a 30-year-old Thai co-pilot with 1,465 total flight hours, almost all on the MD-82. While such experience differences between pilots are common, what was particularly concerning was the crew's lack of rest before the flight. In the week leading up to the flight, both the captain and the co-pilot had exceeded duty limits without sufficient rest. Fatigue likely played a role in the decision-making errors during the flight. As the plane took off at 2:30 p.m., the weather in Phuket was deteriorating. Heavy rain, strong winds, and low visibility made landing difficult. The pilots carried extra fuel in case they needed to divert to another airport. During the flight, passengers remained unaware of the brewing challenges ahead. The MD-82 climbed to a cruising altitude of 32,000 feet before beginning its descent into Phuket. As Flight 269 neared its destination, the pilots observed worsening weather conditions on their radar. At 3:24 p.m., air traffic control instructed them to descend to 8,000 feet and prepare for an instrument landing system, or ILS, approach to runway 27. The ILS would help guide the aircraft to the runway, but due to terrain clearance requirements, it had a 1.4-degree offset, requiring pilots to manually align with the runway upon visual contact. Complicating matters further, the airport's wind shear detection system was not fully functional due to overcast weather affecting its solar power. Wind shear, which involves sudden changes in wind speed or direction, posed a serious risk to aircraft stability during landing. Just before Flight 269's approach, another aircraft, Orient Thai Airlines Flight 2071, had landed safely but reported encountering severe wind shear. This warning signaled that the conditions were not just challenging but potentially dangerous. Despite this warning, the captain of Flight 269 decided to continue with the landing attempt. As the aircraft descended, wind speeds increased from 15 knots to 30 knots and then to 40 knots, pushing the limits of safe operation. The co-pilot disengaged the autopilot to manually align with the runway, increasing his mental workload. However, he left the auto throttle engaged, which would later prove to be a fatal mistake. At 3:39 p.m., as the aircraft approached the runway, it deviated from the glide path and descended too rapidly at a rate of over 1,800 feet per minute. Recognizing the unstable approach, the crew called for a go-around. In such a maneuver, pilots increase engine power, retract the landing gear, and climb away from the runway for another approach. However, in this case, the co-pilot failed to activate the takeoff/go-around toga switch, which would have provided the necessary thrust to safely execute the maneuver. Instead, the co-pilot manually pushed the throttles forward. But because the auto throttle was still engaged in landing mode, it automatically reduced engine power once he let go of the controls. This led to a dangerous loss of speed just as the aircraft was trying to climb. In a moment of panic, the co-pilot transferred control of the plane to the captain, adding further confusion in the cockpit. By the time the captain took control, the aircraft had already reached its peak altitude of around 300 feet before entering an uncontrollable descent. The ground proximity warning system sounded, but it was too late. Moments later, the plane crashed into an embankment north of runway 27. The impact split the aircraft into 3 sections and it burst into flames. Of the 130 people on board, 90 perished instantly, while 40 others sustained injuries. Rescue efforts were severely hampered by the weather and airport infrastructure. A 4-foot-deep running parallel to runway 27 prevented emergency vehicles from quickly reaching the crash site. The first ambulance arrived alone, and additional fire and rescue teams from Phuket town did not reach the scene until 30 minutes later. The investigation into the crash, led by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Committee of Thailand, found that the disaster resulted from a combination of human error, inadequate training, and poor decision-making. The failure to correctly execute the go-around procedure, particularly the co-pilot's failure to engage the toga switch, was identified as a critical mistake. Further investigation revealed deeper issues within 12GO Airlines. The airline had systemic failures in crew training, particularly in fatigue management and adherence to standard operating procedures. Both pilots had exceeded legal duty hours, likely impairing their ability to respond effectively in a crisis. As a consequence of these findings, the European Union blacklisted 12GO Airlines due to safety concerns. The airline, along with its parent company, Orient Thai Airlines, eventually ceased operations in 2018 due to ongoing regulatory and financial difficulties. The crash of Flight 269 serves as a grim reminder of the importance of strict safety regulations, proper pilot training, and adequate rest. Fatigue and momentary errors in high-stress situations can have catastrophic consequences. This tragedy highlighted the need for improvements in airline oversight and safety standards, ensuring that passengers are never put at unnecessary risk.